Alright. Is this thing on? Well, we're gonna find out here in a second if this is actually working. We are going to find out. Is this thing on? Alright. So, just had to make sure that the stream was working good. So, welcome back to another stream for the first time in a minute that we have not done, and you can already tell by the title of the stream about console gaming. It literally is getting ridiculous, and we're not just talking like prices of the current gen consoles that have just recently went up, because you got to think the Nintendo Switch 1 went up, the PlayStation 5s just went up about 2 weeks or so ago, then you got the Xbox Series consoles that also went up in price about 3 months ago. Now, before we actually continue further, I got to make sure, I'm going to turn on my AC, but I'm going to hopefully see if it's going to pick up if I have it on the low fan setting. So, I'm going to do a test. I'm going to check my stream up one more time, and I'm going to see if it's picking it up. If it's not, then I know what we're going to start doing. Because it's kind of getting warm in here. I usually shut my AC off in order for, people to actually hear me and whatnot. So we're going to see if it works here. And I'm going to see if it's picking it up. If it's not, then I know what we're going to start doing. Alright. So it is not picking up the AC, sadly. So we're good. But console gaming, I'm going to be the first one, well, not the first one, of course there's multiple YouTube content creators that have a minute, but I'm going to be one of those that's going to admit that, this is ridiculous. Even if it's got, something to do with tariffs and whatnot, it's like $550 now to get a PlayStation 5 disc drive version. And what's even worse, and I just started watching some content creators just about an hour or so ago when I ate my dinner, but apparently Sony might be decreasing file size, or storage size, in the PlayStation 5 Digital Slim Edition. Yeah, the Slim Digital Edition. They're talking going back down to the OG PS5's storage, which did not include a full 1 terabyte of storage. The PS5 Slims do. And when you compare that to a base model PlayStation 5, you're pretty much going to be getting like 150 to almost 200 extra gigabytes. And we definitely need that, especially with games, with how big that they are getting. You could even go back to the previous gen, look up Air. We got a lot of PlayStation 4 games, Xbox One games, and there have been some games that have actually hit over 100 gigs. Even close to 150, because of how good that the quality and such is. So, Rich, a content creator I used to watch, who decided to delete his main channel. I still think he's stupid for doing it. He shouldn't have deleted that channel that had over a million views, or a million subscribers, I should say. But he started a new channel called Rich Tomorrow. Okay? He basically did say in that video that the PlayStation 5, the consoles we got now, should have at least more than 1 terabyte of storage. I totally agree. Like, I sincerely totally agree, especially in the Xbox Series S. That should have came with 1 terabyte. Like, 512 gigs is, you could basically only hold pretty much 2 games. You could hold Grand Theft Auto 5 and probably the latest Call of Duty. And that's it. That's the only games you could hold on an Xbox Series S. Whereas on a PlayStation 5 with the, not the slim versions, but the OG models that had less than 1 terabyte of storage, you pretty much had 825 gigs, but you had to use some, or some of the storage was taken up due to the operating system and whatnot to help the console be able to run. So in reality, you only got 667, I think, is the amount of gigs that you only got with the original PS5, or 664. I don't know. It's between 660 to 670. That was the only amount of gigs that you got with the base model PlayStation 5, the OG models. And even then, that, even at the end of itself, was still not quite enough space. Like, yes, you could hold, like, possibly 3 more games than you could on a Xbox Series S, maybe even 4, but at the end of the day, you're only still going to hold, like, 6 games, probably. And right now, we have a huge selection now of PlayStation 5 games and Xbox Series X. Stalker 2. Also, that game is coming out for the PlayStation 5. Just got a release date just the other day. It's coming out literally on the 1-year anniversary date, the same day it came out for the Xboxes, November 20th. Also, you also got games like Borderlands. Borderlands 4 comes out in just a week from now, next Friday. As I'm recording this stream, this is officially Wednesday, the 3rd of September. Borderlands 4 comes out next Friday on the 12th. And you can almost guarantee that that game is going to be at least a minimum of close to 100 gigs. Like, yes, it probably ain't going to be as big as something like Red Dead Redemption 2, Call of Duty, and Star Wars Outlaws, all these other recently new games. It's probably not going to be as big as those. But when in reality, Borderlands 3, I think when it first came out in 2013 for the PS4, Xbox One, even with the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X enhancements, that was only around 40 or 50 gigs of a game. So I don't expect Borderlands to be anywhere like close to like RDR2, Call of Duty, and some other new games like God of War, Ragnarok, and such. Like, I think it'll probably be close to 100 gigs, but we don't know yet. Although, one good thing I will say about Call of Duty is I did read something about how the file size of Call of Duty is going to go down, like, significant. Like, we're not talking like 10, 20, or even let alone 30 gigs. We're talking like going from 126 gigabytes down to 25. Now, that's going to be interesting to see what Activision does with that game, even on the old gen systems with the PS4, Xbox One. It's still going to be, like, interesting to see how the game's going to work and if we're going to have texture streaming and all this. So, be interesting. But, yeah, the storage is just out. It's just out of hand. Honestly, I think even they couldn't have done 2 terabytes, but if they could have done something like 1.5, like a 1.5 terabyte of storage, I feel like it would have been a little bit better. Because, let alone at the end of the day, you would actually be getting just a little over a full 1 terabyte of storage. You'd probably be getting like 1.3, 1 terabyte, 250 gigs to equal it out. That's probably what you would get. And in some cases, it would be decent amount of storage. People would be able to hold at least 10 games or more, and they'd be like, Yeah, this is good. But with all this being said, console prices is what the mainstream about. The console prices is what this stream is mainly about. Because the Nintendo Switch 1, not Nintendo Switch 2, at least not as of yet right now, maybe later on, and I'm almost guarantee you, Nintendo's going to do it. They're going to raise the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 probably from $450 to $500, and then $500 bundled with Mario Kart World, and it's probably going to go up to $550. I can almost guarantee you they will raise the Nintendo Switch 2 prices just like what they did with the Switch 1. And what makes this really, like, incredibly weird is the fact that the Switch 1 is legit almost a decade old right now. It is legit almost a decade old. We're talking, if I could do it right, we're talking 8.5 years. March 3rd, either March 3rd or March 2nd, I forget what day the Switch 1 came out, but I know it was either March 2nd or March 3rd. But one of those days when the Switch first came out, it will be officially 9 years old. It will be officially 9 years old. And the Switch has been basically reported to be outdated for pretty much when COVID came around in 2020. That's how long the Switch has been outdated. And third-party developers have not been able to get the games, or at least I should say, haven't been able to port games to the Switch 1 because the Switch 1 is just outdated. Like, let's put it this way, okay? Some people are going to say that the Xbox One, the VCR Xbox One, is outdated. In some cases, it is. In some cases, it's not. But third-party developers, still to this day, can actually still get games looking okay and run decently on a base Xbox One. That shows how bad the Switch 1 is. So, Nintendo's sitting here raising prices for the Switch 1 from $300 to $340 just for the regular base LCD screen model. Then you got the OLED that went from $350 all the way to $400 for the OLED. At that point, while the Switch 2 is its main price, at that point, just go buy a Switch 2. Even if it's an LCD screen, not an OLED like the Switch 1, if you have an OLED TV, kind of like what we do, we have a QD OLED TV in our game room we play on, a Samsung S95B. We even have a regular WOLED LG C1 downstairs. So if you have an OLED TV and you don't play on handheld mode much, you'd be pretty much set with a Switch 2. So even if you don't play in handheld mode, you will be set. You will absolutely be set with a Switch 2. Because if you play on the TV, you're pretty much playing on an OLED. If you have an OLED, is what I'm trying to say. So in that reality, that's what I would honestly be doing. If you want to experience OLED as a whole, and you don't want to, you want to buy a Switch 2 because it's just $50 more and you're going to get more newer games and whatnot, and you want that OLED-like experience, well, if you have an OLED television, I just say buy a Switch 2. Because at the end of the day, if you're not going to play handheld, if you're just going to play it on dock, you're pretty much set. You're going to get an OLED experience. You're going to get those nice, rich colors, nice, clean detail, nice, awesome, punchy HDR highlights, nice, infinite contrast. You just be set getting a Switch 2 if you have an OLED TV, rather than buying an OLED Switch 1. Because at the end of the day, yes, you might play handheld sometimes and whatnot, But if, as long as you have an OLED TV, you know how to play your Switch with OLED, or your Switch 2, I should say. Yeah, at that point, for $50 more, just buy a Switch 2. Because at the end of the day, you can just play it in dock, play it on a big screen, get an OLED experience, and you got the newest and greatest thing, especially right now, while it is at its normal MSRP price point, while it stays like that. But I do expect that Nintendo is probably going to raise the Switch 2 prices sometime after the holiday season in 2026. I don't think that they're going to do it right now, currently, with the holidays coming up, because if they do, they're definitely not going to sell as many Switch 2s as they were hoping. So I bet you what Nintendo's going to do is they're going to wait till the holiday season is over, wait till sometime early in 2026, like, let's say March, let's say early March for an example, and they're going to come out with an announcement. Not saying that that's what Nintendo is going to officially do, but let's just say that is what they do. They wait till March, and then out of nowhere they say, hey, due to market conditions, the Switch 2, we have to raise prices of it. It's going to be $500 now. And at the end of the day, even with the Switch 2, it's still nowhere near as powerful as a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. In reality, if it come to that, you would just be better off to buy a PlayStation 5 digital edition, even if it comes down to Sony decreasing the storage size to 825 gigs from a full 1 terabyte. And that's another thing we do have to mention that is going to be interesting to pretty much see, because at the end of the day, that's a digital only console. So you can't put discs in. I mean, you could buy a disc drive and, you know, set it up and all that, but you have to have Wi-Fi to do it. But at the end of the day, if somebody buys a PlayStation 5 digital edition, they're most likely buying it because they just prefer to download their games because it's so convenient. Because let's say you're somebody or whatever that has a bunch of games like we do, well, this house can honestly either catch on fire or somebody could just break in and they could just smash those games or steal some of those games, and then we lose them and we can't get them back. Now, if we have digital, and I know there's some pros and cons with digital owning, and I know that there are some people that are going to say you don't necessarily own digital, and I think eventually there will be a law in place when enough people complain, not just here in the United States, but some other countries. I mean, I think it's the United Kingdom that actually had a petition that was going on, and there was over 1 million signatures going on, close to 2 million, that have signed that for digital owned game rights and whatnot. So, but at the end of the day, if you are very, very strict and you're very, very protective of your PlayStation, Xbox, PC, your main online account, if you're very strict with it and whatnot, your house can, or apartment or whatever, can catch on fire. But guess what? You might lose your console and whatnot, but you know what? Just go buy another one. And guess what? You buy another one, all your games are there. You can just re-download them and not have to worry about buying individual game. So, like, if something like that were to happen, at least as long as you're very, very protective and you're strict of your account for your safety and whatnot, and you change your password, like, as soon as you think something's odd, all you would have to do is just go buy a new console, and boom, all your games, save, progress, all that, gonna be all right there for you. So, some pros and cons with that, but at the end of the day, people still can hack people's accounts, and then if you have hundreds of thousands of games and whatnot, or I should say hundreds, then if you had the digital or the physical copies of them, same difference. You just make a new account and then pop in those discs, and then boom, start playing. Although you would have to re-get all the trophies and achievements and all that stuff, but most people won't even care about that. But minus all of that out of the way, I do think that consoles are just getting ridiculous. At least overpriced. Like, they're just insane. Just ridiculous. Now, if you want an Xbox Series X, Microsoft raised the prices of those from, well, let's start off with the cheap budget. And I'm actually going to see if anybody comment. And I did not want to start Minecraft, so that was wrong. Okay. Yep. I appreciate it, Powers Dave. I appreciate you being a supporter of my channel for so long. So, thank you for supporting me. So, let's start off with the Xbox Series S, okay? The Series S originally was $299. Guess what? It's now $379.99. And then, now we talk about the 1TB Series S. Guess how much it was? $349.99. And then now, it's $429.99. Now let's go to the Series X. The 1TB VCR, or not VCR, I'm thinking of the Xbox One. Let's start off with the disk drive, regular black 1TB. That system was $499.99. And then now, it's $600 for a Series X that has been out for going on 5 years this November 10th. Yeah, the Series X and S will be 5 years old this November 10th. Now let's go to the PlayStation, or not the PlayStation, the 2TB Series X. The Galaxy Edition was $600. Well, now it's $730. $730. Yeah. Now let's go to the PlayStation 5. Just 2 weeks ago, Sony announced prices increases for the PlayStation 5s. Digital edition went from $450 to $500. Disc drive went from $500 to $550. The PS5 Pro, which thankfully I got mine while I can, went from $700 to $750. Now, there is still some props I'll give Sony. Like, I don't give Sony props for the price increase in general, but when you look at the Xbox Series X 2TB Galaxy Edition and the PS5 Pro, even though the PS5 Pro is $20 more, it's still a better value than the 2TB Xbox Series X. Although, I know some people might say it's not because the Series X has a disk drive and the PS5 Pro doesn't. But at the same time, I mean, 2 terabytes of storage, you're getting a much more better, powerful system. So, the PS5 Pro still, even if it's a digital-only console, with 2 terabytes of storage and being more powerful, I still think it's a better deal than the 2TB Series X. But I don't think that the prices should have went up. So, the prices are just going out, like, they're just outrageous. And every console generation before we had PS1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and PlayStation 4 have all had prices gone down with slim models because it was cheaper to manufacture and just was smaller. However, we're going the opposite direction, and it's with all systems. So the Xbox Series consoles, PlayStation 5s, and the Nintendo Switch 1. But, like I said, be prepared for the Switch 2 to go up either early next year, or it might actually happen before the holidays get here. But at the end of the day, I don't think Nintendo is going to do anything about that, at least not till after the holiday season is over, because They want to sell as many Switch 2s as possible right now, and with them raising prices before the holiday season, they're not going to sell as many. I almost guarantee you they will not sell as many, because people are just going to see, like, let's say they raise the Switch 2 to $50 more like Sony did with the PS5s. People are just going to see, well, why would I pay $500 for a Switch 2 that is still less powerful than a PS5 if I can just get a PlayStation 5 digital edition? And that's what people are going to see. Or let alone getting a Series S for $430 for a 1 terabyte, or $380 with the less amount of storage. So that's what people are going to really see is, well, I could get something better for either the same price or cheaper along with the price increases. But I still don't think that the price increase should have happened. I literally do not. Some part of it is due to tariffs, and then the other part is because of corporate greed. And right now, guess what company has taken that crown out of the three? It's Nintendo. Because when the Switch 2 got announced, and later in April, I think it was, April or March or something, the Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo's like, yep, sorry, we're going to have some $80 games. Sorry, prices got to go up. When in reality, it doesn't take that much to make a Nintendo game. Like PlayStation, Xbox, and whatnot, like the third-party developers that make all of those games, like Assassin's Creed, Shadows, and freaking Red Dead Redemption 2, even let alone Grand Theft Auto 5, however, on the other hand, games like a lot of the new current generation games that have came out in the last 2, 3, 4 or so years, the budgets have been high, sky high. And you know why? One of the big reasons is because of graphical fidelity and bigger, huge open worlds. Nintendo doesn't do that. Their games, like, probably, like, we're going to, like, let's compare something like Super Mario Odyssey. Let's compare Super Mario Odyssey from Horizon Forbidden West on the PS5. Okay, Super Mario Odyssey, Horizon Forbidden West on PlayStation 5. Okay, Horizon Forbidden West was an average of $220 million to produce. Super Mario Odyssey in 2017, I don't know what the number is, but I know it was nowhere near what Horizon was. It's down. Horizon's right here. Mario Odyssey is right here. It probably cost Nintendo, I'm going to just take a lucky guess, probably $20 or $30 million to make. Now compare that. 30 million compared to 220 million. That's a huge difference. So in reality, Nintendo did not have to raise their prices of their games. They didn't even need to raise the prices from the get-go, from 60 to 70. They would still be in a healthier position, but you know what? They've been successful with the Switch 1. That's what they want. It's corporate greed. They're like, oh, we were successful. We got loyal fans. We got people that love our system. Well, we'll take advantage of them because they'll definitely pay us because they're so loyal to us. Yeah. That's what freaking Nintendo did when they announced prices going up for games like Mario Kart World, is because they know that they got loyal fans that will pay them every single dime. But when it came to Microsoft, the Xbox did the same thing a month or so after Nintendo did. I think it was back in May, Microsoft announced that it was raising its first-party games to $80. But guess what? It managed to bite Microsoft in the ass. Sadly, it didn't Nintendo. But it did Microsoft, a even trillion-dollar company. Nintendo's still a big company, but they're like $1 billion company. Microsoft is $1 trillion company. So, in reality, a smaller company being like that, and then $1 trillion company went back, that's kind of an odd situation. But the main reason Microsoft backtracked 2 months later after its announcement is because, well, we heard rumors that The Outer Worlds 2 didn't get a lot of pre-orders. And I can almost guarantee, because people are going to be like, well, $80 for one simple game, or $80 for like the next 5 days to feed me and my family. Guess what? This is what they did. They decided to use that $80 to get food for their family for the next 5 days, because it's worth it than paying that, not having the money to feed their family, and pay a game, one individual game with that. See? And that's what's going to happen in the future. And we're already starting to get reports that we're going to get to a gaming crash at some point in the near future, even if it's next year, the year after, or whatnot. And then with the console prices going up, I kind of having a little bit of a suspicious feeling right now that the next console generation, it might actually be the last console generation in general. I don't think we may not even get any more consoles after that, unless we get to the part. Now, this is something that a friend of mine that I work with mentioned, and he's on point, that what they should do is they should just let you do like PCs. Just let you buy the parts that you want, take the top covers off, and put your parts in. And that's, consoles could honestly get to that point, and I think they might, because that's definitely the future. I'm going to see if I got any more comments real quick. Oh yeah, you definitely got that right, Powers Dave. The prices are they're outrageous, literally. So, yeah. So now, like, at the really end of the day, I'm still going to hold my, I'm going to hold my tongue for this, but at the end of the day, if you wanted to get a console currently right now, yes, I know $750 may seem like a lot of money for our console, but PlayStation 5 Pro is honestly just the best value currently, because let alone getting an Xbox Series X 2TB for almost similar price when you could get a PS5 Pro that's more powerful with the same 2TB of storage. Yes, it might only be digital, but if you got fast internet, honestly, you'd just be better off getting that. And then when it comes to like PlayStation 5 original and Xbox Series X, base model PlayStation 5s are still value. So no matter what it is, even if it's a base model PS5 or PS5 Pro, Sony has still got the value in terms of, like, Sony is still the value king currently with affordable consoles, because you'll be saving $50 if you get a PS5, then a Series X, and then switch into a PlayStation 5 Pro, Xbox Series X 2TB, pretty much almost identical, close to the same price. Why not just go for the PlayStation 5 Pro and get the better console for almost the same price? So at the end of the day, Sony has still got the king when it comes to value, even though I don't support the console prices going up. I literally don't. It's just ridiculous. But the Switch 1 is probably the worst part of it, because it's almost a decade old, and then you can almost guarantee, especially with how hugely greed that Nintendo is, the Switch 2 will be at some point in the near future. Even if it's early next year or possibly even sooner, Nintendo Switch 2 will eventually go up in price. But honestly, this is kind of like where I think some people that don't have a current gen console, I think this is probably going to continue to keep Xbox One, PlayStation 4 probably irrelevant right now. And people's just going to want to see that. And with PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox One X, if you want a really 4K console and you want a really nice, affordable, that PS4 Pro, Xbox One X might actually be your best option. It truthfully might be, because you can find a PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox One X for somewhere around $200, $250. But you could get lucky with a PS5 Series X off of eBay or Facebook Marketplace, or even probably in a pawn shop or whatnot. Well, I probably shouldn't say a pawn shop, but I don't know how pawn shops are going to be. But you could probably find some decently used current-gen consoles probably for a much better price than buying them out new. But at the end of the day, but then you could get still a 4K console experience that I still think to this day holds really good in terms of visuals and performance and whatnot. Like, yes, may not get as good in visuals and performance as you would get like with a PS5 or Series X, but with the PS4 Pro and One X consoles, they're still quite honestly good. I actually just decided to hook ours back up just the other day, and I've actually decided that I might actually play The Last of Us Part 2 on the PS4 Pro, and I started the first bit of the game just earlier, and I was like, dog, this still looks insanely good, especially on our QD OLED television, our Samsung S95B. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to play it on our C1 downstairs. So even then, you're still going to get 4K and games that can still run somewhat consistent 30 frames a second. And that's another thing I forgot to mention. And I know I'm going to get some friends that is literally going to wonder like why I decided to go back and play them consoles, because they think I kind of should, like, at the end of the day, only play just the new systems. But it's like, well, you don't have that much storage for one, and a lot of the games haven't been really good optimized for PS5 and Series X. So in some cases, some games are actually looking and running decently better and have better optimization on last gen systems. Even if it's a base PS4, some games have better optimization than they do on the current gen. One of the games is the new Metal Gear Solid Delta Force. That game is actually just not that great. It has a lot of optimization issues, and it's been reported from Digital Foundry that the game runs worse on the more powerful PS5 Pro than on the base PS5. So that ad definitely tells you something, definitely, that we got really just not very good optimizations in games. Now, Stalker 2, even though it's a game that I absolutely love, and I'm freaking absolutely excited to play it on PS5 this year when it comes out, and especially with them announcing that it is for sure going to have, or going to be enhanced for the PS5 Pro, it's supposed to play at 4K performance mode. I'm definitely super excited to finally replay that game on the PS5 Pro. But when it first came out late last year for the Xbox consoles, it definitely did have a lot of optimization issues. And then you got Star Wars Survivor, or Star Wars Jedi Survivor. That's what it was. Jedi Survivor. That game had a lot of issues. And yeah, games have just not been coming out super, super great. Cyberpunk 2077, another one. Fallout 76, another one. Now, those are games that came out for the last gen systems, and Fallout was only on last gen, but you can still look back at those games. Anthem was another one. Then you got Battlefield 2042 that had a lot of missing features, lot of performance issues, even on the current gen consoles that were more powerful than last gen, still had performance issues. And yeah, And then you got Call of Duty on the other hand that in a way sometimes here and there, especially when they first come out, like every single year, they have also some kind of performance issues and bugs and whatnot where the game is just crashing all the time, this and that. Then you got Tiny Tina's Wonderlands that kind of had a very similar to Borderlands 3, although it wasn't quite as bad. But Tiny Tina's Wonderlands crashed on our Xbox One X, and I think once on our Series X. So it's just like, games are just not coming out that great, especially not as good as like what they did on the previous generation. And honestly, to be truthful, I don't care what anybody says if I still game on a PS4 Pro, Xbox One X. I'll still enjoy them because they're still good consoles, still looking good in quality of games, and still perform good. And in some cases, sometimes even better because they have better optimization, because developers at least optimize games a little better. And even though that's crazy to say, because the PS5 and Series X are way more powerful and are very, very capable of games hitting their target frame rates, target resolutions. I mean, not every game's not been able to hit 4K, let alone freaking performance mode at like not even close to 1440p. So gaming is definitely changing, and it's not looking all that great. It just literally is not looking great whatsoever. I'm still going to continue probably to play on the PS4 Pro, One X and such, because honestly, they're still very good consoles. And personally, if anybody of you wants a 4K console and you don't want to pay high prices of like the PlayStation 5 Pro, regular PS5, Xbox Series X, then if you have a 4K monitor, 4K TV, you might just be better off to find a PlayStation 4 Pro or an Xbox One X off of eBay or Facebook Marketplace that's pretty much local in your area, and you might even save more money getting those. And then probably later on down the road, you could probably find a used PS5, Xbox Series X for definitely a good bit cheaper than buying the consoles new. And what I think is going to really happen, I can see it happening eventually, probably not anytime soon right yet, although I could very well be wrong and it could happen soon, and I hope it does. But what I can honestly see that might happen in the future is people are not going to be buying the consoles much anymore. Once Sony and Microsoft eventually see that their consoles are not selling, if they start saying that, they will have to eventually lower their prices. I almost guarantee you they will eventually start to see that. Because like I was saying earlier, when you look at a game like Outer Worlds 2 for pre-order for $80, and somebody that can just buy $80 worth of groceries to get them and their kids through like the next 5 days, like that's essentially what people are going to be looking at. They're going to see that and be like, should I buy $80 for this game for one particular product, or do I worry about myself and get food for me and my kids? What should I do? Well, you know what they're going to do, because if they only have $80 or maybe $200 just to take a lucky guess, I mean, you know what they're going to do? They're going to choose the groceries, and they're going to choose to feed their kids. Then that game, that developer lost a sale. That's kind of like what happened with the pre-order situation, and I believe it's true, and why Microsoft went back on its prices for its games, because they didn't get enough pre-orders. But that, I can tell you, that's what's going to happen with the consoles when we continue on. And I can honestly see it, literally. And this is due to, even with tariffs and with corporate greed, it's with everything. It will eventually bite the companies in the ass. Because One thing I am going to admit is I'm thankful for the Series X's I got, the PlayStation 5 Pros, and the base PS5s I currently have. I am so thankful I got them. I know it kind of sounds crazy, but got 3 Series X's, 3 base model disk drive PlayStation 5s, and 2 PS5 Pros. And even though I know that kind of sounds ridiculous and crazy at the end of itself, but you can see with our new house that we moved to about 7 months ago actually, that we moved here. It's a 2-bedroom. We have a setup in every single room, downstairs living room, game room in here, bedroom next door, or next room I should say. So we got a PS5 Pro in the game room in here, and we got one for downstairs in the living room, but as well, we have a base PS5 in here, downstairs, and in that room. And then the same thing with the One X and PS4 Pro that we pretty much bought like years ago now at this point, because our PlayStation 4 Pros and Xbox One X's are literally like 5-6 years old right now. And shockingly, our day one editions still work like new. And the same thing with our PlayStation 5s. So even though that might sound crazy, we're definitely thankful we got them while they were at their normal price point. Like, got the Series X PS5 on launch day, $500. Got our second Series X off of somebody locally when the Series X's were still hard to find. We found a guy on Facebook Marketplace who had a PlayStation 5 and Series X day one, but never opened his Series X. Guess how much he asked for that Series X brand new when they were legit super hard to find? Yeah, not $500, but also not $1,000 either. He only asked $600, which, to be fair, I thought was reasonable, especially with how hard it was to get a console that time in mid-2021, around this time. That was definitely a good price. So, but what makes it even better is we also got a Series S too that I forgot to mention. Only one though. We bought that right before we bought that dude's $600 Series X. But the Series S was pretty much used, but it was still pretty much brand new because the guy only had it for 2 months. So, a couple months early. Guess how much that Series S was? At that time, even the Series S's were still hard to find in stores and get one. And people were asking like $500-$600 for them. Well, that dude sold us that Series S $260. We got a decent, almost brand new Series S at that time when they were insanely hard. $260. Dude, I was told we were lucky with that one and the Series X for $600. So, pretty good. Then we bought our third Series X about 7 or so months later for $500 from a friend of ours that we went to school with, and works fine. He was getting rid of it, needed money, and I wanted a third one, so I helped him out, and he helped us out. And then later on, with the PlayStation 5, about 3 months later, actually, we ended up getting our second PlayStation 5 base model. It is a second gen model, or second model number something. It's not the launch model code or whatever code is what it should, model number. It was the second one, but this was from a guy in the next town from us, and it was a used one, and he sold us that PlayStation 5 for $425. Yeah, $425, cheaper than MSRP price. So, we got lucky on that one too. Exactly. And then, that was our last console of current gen that we bought until just a couple months ago. Yeah. A few months ago, I should say. Then that's when we got our PS5 Pros. And the reason how we got our PlayStation 5 Pros is we had a good bit of money left over from moving into this house after paying our rent and deposit to get this house. We had a good bit of money left over. And when we moved in here, it was tax season. So we got almost $700 back in federal tax. So we went and bought our second PS5 Pro with that money. And then we bought our friend an Xbox Series X from a person here in town for $340. Gave it to him, and he gave us his PS5. So that's how lucky we got with all of our current gen systems. And I know, pretty good deals, haven't it? I'm gonna see if you said anything, Power Raise. Okay. I see you haven't texted, if that's you still pretty much watching and whatnot. So, yeah. We got pretty much lucky with our current gen systems. So, with all that money we saved with getting them, and now with prices going up, I am so freaking blessed and so thankful that we have saved hundreds of dollars on our PlayStation 5s, Series X's, and as now as well as our PS5 Pros. I am so freaking thankful. But we're getting ready to end the stream, and before we do end the stream, I do believe that this is what's going to happen in the next probably 2 years or so, is people's not going to buy the consoles, and eventually Sony and Microsoft are just going to have to be like, okay, we need to lower our prices, we done something bad, and that's what's going to happen, is they're just not going to sell as many consoles anymore. I mean, to be fair, Microsoft really ain't selling the Xboxes as much, but with them raising their prices that they did, they're dead. I think they're not even going to sell like 50,000. It's crazy as that seems. Like in 2024, they only sold 2 point something million consoles of the Series S's and X's. But I bet you right now, they're probably not even selling anywhere close to 1 million currently. With the prices that have went up, I don't think they're going to be selling any. PlayStation might be a little bit in a healthier position, but they're not going to be selling as many PlayStation 5s as what they were to if they would have kept the price, the main normal price point. And then once Nintendo does it with the Switch 2, it's definitely going to bite Nintendo in the ass too. So I do expect that eventually, even if it's next year or the year after, they're going to eventually not be selling their consoles as hardly as often, and they're just going to be like, okay, we have to get these consoles out. We're just sitting here holding stock. Nobody is not buying our stuff. We're not making enough money. So that's what they're going to have to do, is they're just going to have to eventually lower their prices back down and have to honestly accept it, because other than that, nobody's not going to buy the consoles. I mean, like I said, PlayStation's in a decently healthier position, and they'll still sell some good bit of consoles, but they may eventually be like, okay, we are not selling as much as we hope for, and Microsoft is eventually going to do the same. Especially right now, I think Microsoft probably will be the first that will lower their consoles eventually, because I think it's going to bite them in the ass. So, console gaming, with prices going up for the consoles, games having bad optimization, games just not performing all that great, and less storage, yeah, console gaming is just not the same anymore as it once was. And then you got exclusives that are officially now going to go to every platform, even though I don't really think that that is really going to affect console sales whatsoever. But that at the end of itself is another add-on to it. So yeah, in 2025, consoles are just not the same anymore as they once was with last gen and then the previous generations before that. They're just not the same anymore at all. And then you got games that can't even hit 4K resolution on PlayStation 5 and Series X, and let alone the PlayStation 5 Pro. They have to be like some kind of dynamic resolution, when 4K was produced in 2016 with the PlayStation 4 Pro, and a lot of games were able to stay at their maintained resolutions at pretty much that system, or I should say on that system and the One X, for an example. They just were able to stay at those, resolutions. Not all games, but a good portion of them. And yeah, console gaming's just not the same anymore as it once was. So, with all that being said, hope you enjoy the stream. I had to check something out real quick. But, hope you guys enjoyed that stream. If you could, smack that like button if you enjoy it. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will keep you posted with more content going forward. And you let us know in the comment section down below of your thoughts of, do you think that this is just ridiculous with all these three big companies of Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony raising prices of their consoles and just going to really hurt their bottom line of not selling as many consoles as they hope for, and just pretty much killing console probably a bit sooner than expected? And what do you think about next generation consoles with the PS6 and whatever Xbox calls their next system probably being the last bit of consoles that we're probably going to have? Let us know in the comments section down below of what you think about all this, with console gaming not being the same anymore as it once was. So, tech and gaming reviews, rate, comment, subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Peace out.